All right, let's get cracking. Today we have Adam Caspary on. He's going to give us a bit of a rundown of himself, his accomplishments, and what he stands for shortly. But I just want to take the time to say thank you for listening to this. This is very different to the standard podcast. When I started this, I really wanted to allow people to take away practical lessons as opposed to higher level stuff that you just can't implement. I want you to be able to take something away as soon as you finish this podcast, or even during the podcast. I'd love it if you heard something and you just stopped listening to the podcast altogether and you went and implemented it. So that's what we're going to try and help you guys with today. We're going to focus on marketing, business, and life in general. And we're going to try and be as ruthless as possible, because I think that's where the true gold lies. So before I get Adam to introduce himself, I just want to say thank you to Facebook, Instagram, Google, TikTok, and everybody else who is sponsoring this podcast. Without you, I could not do it. That is a complete lie. I wish you would sponsor the podcast, and hopefully that will happen in the near future. But without further ado, let's jump on. Adam, thank you, sir, for coming on. Where are you at the moment? You at home or?
Thanks for having me, Tom. Yeah, currently at home in the basement. That's where I reside at the moment.
Excellent. The basement is good. It seems like a very minimal sort of design. So are you somebody that kind of likes cleanliness and not too much kind of going on, so you can have some clear thoughts? Or
I do, on the surface level, in theory, like all those things that you mentioned. Yeah. Clean design, clean space, clean mind. I love having a clean desktop on my computer.
Yeah.
Clean email, zero inbox.
Okay.
But the reality is it doesn't look like that most of the time. But in theory, yes.
Excellent. All right. So tell the viewers who the hell you are and what the hell you're going to help them with today.
Great. Well, who am I? Well, I guess to take this back a little bit,
yeah.
I've been brought up in a very business-oriented house. My parents both have worked in retail all my life. Some of my earliest memories are crawling around the floor of my dad's jewelry store in South Africa when we lived there. So very, very much been brought up in a business-minded sort of environment. When my family goes on holiday, we spend a bit of time at the beach, but we spend a lot of time in shopping centers and looking at what the locals are doing in terms of business. We're always looking for ideas. So I've always sort of mindset as a kid. My mum opened up a jewelry store when I was in my early teens, and she, I have a lot of memories hanging out there while she's working in it. I'm walking around the shopping center. But when I was maybe 14 or 15 years old, my dad gave me a book, The 4-Hour Work. And I read that book and it left a big impression on me in terms of, in order to be successful in business, you've got to be outstanding at marketing. And that's what really sparked my interest and passion for marketing. And ever since then, I've been reading everything I can get my hands on in terms of marketing, following, these so-called gurus on YouTube. I've been going through and consuming courses. And more recently, and I also did study at university with a major in marketing. But more recently, I've actually had the opportunity to get some hands-on experience within some marketing campaigns. And so I've really run a broad range of campaigns across the different platforms, including, obviously, you've got your Facebooks, you've got your Googles, Pinterest, TikTok, really Snapchat, wherever you can run ads. I've had a bit of experience in doing that, display advertising, affiliates as well. But really where I got my, and it happened through, I guess, very much good timing and a bit of luck as well on both of our ends, because I was coming towards the end of my degree. I have all this knowledge in my mind, all this theoretical knowledge around Facebook ads and to do and landing page, picking your niche, but I hadn't actually had that hands-on experience of actually running a campaign. And I was going through a stage of actually seeking either an internship or a full-time role. And I went through a period of just applying. And I came across this one role that really stood out to me. It was an interesting job because it was different to all the other agencies and client-side businesses that I was applying for. And it was actually with a company that does, trading. And I thought this would be an awesome place to work. But I didn't really think too much after the application because I was just applying. And And the next morning I wake up, he says, "Hey, this is Tom. I saw your application for the internship. Would you like tell me a bit about yourself?" And that really is where I started getting hands-on experience, particularly within the Facebook platform.
Awesome. Awesome. So if I was to give you $1,000 right now to boost my brick and mortar business down in the local mall, what would you do with the money?
What would I do with the money? That's a really good question. Whenever someone asks you a question like this, you need to dive a bit deeper and understand what's going on within the business, because every business has unique assets, unique elements, unique targets, and unique goals that you need to factor in when putting together a marketing plan. What sort of a business is this?
I run a jewelry store. You
run a jewelry store. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, it's actually interesting seeing everything. And I'm going to assume, we've exhausted all options, like sending out emails to the list, calling the people, sending an SMS, asking for referrals, because a lot of those places are the first place to actually start. I think when it comes to marketing, everyone is excited by, let's run paid ads, let's scale and let's do all these things. But for me, it really starts with understanding and implementing the fundamentals, the foundational strategies and skills. Of one of those is Google My Business. I think it's the lowest hanging fruit and the easiest place for someone to start getting found and seen by potential customers. Then if we're doing a paid strategy whereby I've been given $1,000 and I want to get people in the store and I want to actually produce the greatest return on investment, I probably would start with Google Ads.
Okay, nice.
And the reason that's not an answer that I would have given if we went back a year or even 2 years. I would have definitely said Facebook. Facebook's where it's at, because that's where it's getting that's what's getting the most hype at the moment. Mm-hmm. But what I've actually seen through working through a marketing agency, the core marketing strategies that a lot of businesses that are successful use is a Google search strategy. Mm. Now, the reason that is powerful is because you have people who are searching for what you are looking for. So to maximize the $1,000, you're going to get a much better quality lead if someone is searching for, someone's searching for buy engagement ring Sydney, versus if someone's scrolling through Facebook and they see an ad that says, "Hey, would you like to buy an engagement ring?"
Yeah, so it's interruptive versus targeted searches, yeah?
Exactly. It's intent versus disruptive.
Yeah.
It's exactly it. They've both been around for many, many years before Google and Facebook. If you want some good examples of intent or really search-based marketing, you can look at things like the Yellow Pages. For years, that was an amazing place to be running ads. If someone's looking for a jeweler or they're looking for a plumber, how did they do it? Not even that long ago, 20 years ago, what did people do? They opened up the Yellow Pages and looked up what they wanted to solve. Nice. And so that's the equivalent today. The equivalent of Facebook, the disruptive, is placing an ad in a magazine.
Yeah.
Or knocking on people's doors, going door to door selling. That's essentially Facebook ads.
Nice. All right, I'm going to throw a spanner in the works and ask you a very easy question.
Here we go.
I ask everybody on this podcast.
All right.
Adam, what is the meaning of life?
What is the meaning of life? That's an interesting question, Tom.
See, just while you think about this, the reason that he keeps answering these questions with "that is an interesting question" is because it's a stalling technique that allows him to think for longer. And so while he's actually speaking those words, he's giving himself more time to answer the question, which is a very strategic and professional and effective strategy in marketing and speaking in general. So have you had time to think, Adam?
Thanks. It's very subjective. It depends what you believe in. For me, if I was to give an answer, what is the meaning of life? I don't know if there is a meaning, but I can tell you what the purpose of life is. And there's two purposes. The first one is surviving. And the second one is reproduction, to further extend the life of our species.
How's your reproduction goal going at the moment?
Well, I think we're living in interesting times, that's for sure, where we're in very, very many ways artificially controlled. And what I mean by that is, if we were living 10,000 years ago, by now you and I would both already potentially have kids, would have potentially a wife or multiple wives. But in this day and age, it's really changed quite a lot in terms of how we're living our lives and what we're doing and what we're valuing. But you'll often find that some of the underlying drives, such as the drive to reproduce, is still very prevalent within humans.
Tinder, for instance, yeah.
Tinder, for instance, is an example of how we as species have evolved and shifted our priorities and strategies.
All right, we're back. Instant change of location. We were talking about what are some life lessons that, based on your experience with business, in your parents' business, but also at the agency, what transferable lessons have you seen you've learned from people in business that could be transferred into people that aren't in business?
Yeah, that's a really good question. All right, I'm saying it again. That's a great question, so I can think about what to say. But just before, you gave some examples, such as the 80-20 rule. I think that's something that can be applied across business and life. I think there's so many different parallels between whatever you're doing, whether you're pursuing a career in marketing, whether you're pursuing a career in business, whether you're pursuing a career in knitting. I think a lot of the lessons that you learn following these paths teach you lessons that can be applied to life. And these lessons can be applied to all sorts of different industries, different parallels, different things that you're doing. So I think that a lot of these principles are very much transferable. But I'd say one of the biggest things that I've learned from business is problem solving. But to go into the marketing side of things, because that's kind of what we're discussing, I think one of the biggest lessons, or one of the biggest things that people should focus on in marketing, is testing and experimenting. Nice. And actually looking at and understanding the data. So often you see people, they work on the best ad, they spend hours on it, they optimize it, they write, the sentence over and over again until it's perfect, the right character length, you have the perfect image or video, and you're super pumped and happy with it. You've put all this effort into it and you put it out. And very often those are the ads that completely flop. For sure. And then on the other hand, you have ads that you may have snapped it on your phone. It's not such a great quality photo. Yeah. You type something up in 5 minutes, you put it out there, and those ones sometimes excel. Now, sometimes the ones that you put all this effort into they work, and sometimes the ones you make in 5 minutes don't work. So it works both ways, but really the biggest lesson from that is testing and experimenting and understanding the data in order to make decisions.
I just, I'm bringing up a recent ad that I ran just as a spur of the moment business idea that you'll agree that this is a carefully constructed ad with incredible graphic design.
Tom Redaway, it says, "I'm like a personal trainer, but for your goals, curious." And the headline is "Crush Procrastination Forever." Okay, awesome. I like it.
What about the creative, mate? The creative.
Let's read the creative. It looks good. I'm sure everyone can see this if you're watching the video, but if you're listening on the audio, it's a white image, a white background with a stick figure with an arrow pointing towards the text "Big Goal," and in the middle is a devil, and it says "Procrastination." I like it. So let's talk. This is an ad that you have been running.
I literally, just, how I have these spur of the moment business ideas that, for those online, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in business is that instead of, and some people don't like this approach, but I think it's a lot more real, because so there's two different ways to approach this. Essentially, lots of people, let's just say you're building an online course, and you're building an online course on knitting, which is what Adam spoke about before. And on this online course, you kind of get down, you get your notepad out, you plan out 50 lessons. Each one of them is going to be an hour. You're going to go through all the basics. It's going to be incredible. You're going to build them up from never having knitted before to being a knitting master, knitting 200 jumpers a day. And it's going to be incredible. Yeah. So you spend the next 3 to 6 months recording these videos. Absolutely perfect. Everything's intact. You build a website, you build the landing pages, you build the ads. And then you launch and nobody buys anything. And now that's just an example. Obviously, maybe you made millions, but at the same time, there's lots of people that put a lot of effort into businesses that didn't test and or do any sort of research or market sort of analysis before they launched. And so they've done all this work and then they've got nothing to show for it. My approach nowadays is to sell the product or idea first and then build a business second. And so that allows you to think of an idea. And if you have a way to push it out to the market, whether that be organically by just surveying some Facebook friends or putting a poll on Instagram or whatnot, or if you kind of take a little bit of a more targeted, risky approach, I would probably call it, and running some cold ads to, say, a messenger type campaign, which maybe some people don't understand what that is, but it's essentially setting up a Facebook page very quickly and then running ads to get people to message that page. And so my theory is, and I've done this 50 odd times, is that, if you can create in an ad, or if you're doing this organically, same sort of thing, if you can create or you can communicate the end result that the person who buys into this business is going to get, and that ad does nothing, then you shouldn't build a business. And that's comes with a caveat that, okay, maybe if you spent a lot more time and energy and interest, you might be able to pull some more people off the ad. But I've seen it time and time again that for every 10 businesses that I try this with, one of them will be a clear winner. And like this one I pushed out on Friday, I think it was, 100 leads in the first day. And not many businesses that are 2-3 years down the track can kind of claim that. And so this is what we're kind of talking about. You're starting the marketing first and then building the business, as opposed to investing the time and energy into the business and then doing the marketing second.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. And while you were talking and talking about some of those examples, something that has an endeavor or a business venture that I've gone down, and I invested a lot of money and time and energy and effort into building this business, that I wish I had heard what Tom just said and actually test it out first and test the product out first. And to talk a little bit about this example, because it illustrates it really well, especially because it was such a timely and costly mistake. In 2017, my cousin, to start, I saw a lot of people posting about this concept in New York. It was called Cookie Dough NYC. And essentially what it was going crazy on social media. I saw all these articles and companies posting about it, and people that I knew that were in New York were posting about it too. And what it was an edible cookie dough business. Now, they had done an excellent job with their marketing, and obviously people loved the product. So they had lines outside their door daily between 30 minutes to 4 hours all day.
Wow.
Week round. And I saw this concept. I'm like, wow, this would do awesome, because it had all this hype behind it. So many people are commenting saying this would be awesome, would love to try it. Some people were like, let's fly over to New York to go taste this. It was generating all this hype, all this buzz. And I kind of forgot about it. And a few months later, I see this YouTuber who's walking through New York, and he walks past and he's like, what's going on here? Because he notices the long line. And it's aligned to this place. So it kind of put in my mind, this concept is awesome. It's still been going all this time. It wasn't a fad, because this was a few months later. And about, I don't know, maybe 24 hours later, my cousin, who is a corporate lawyer, he wanted to leave and do something different. He's got a very strong business mind, but he's pursued a career or a path of law, which he's done very well at, but he wanted to try something new. So him and my brother decided they're going to go travel to New York and a few other places in America to go find some business concepts.
Yeah.
And bring them back to Australia. So see what's working over there and implement them here in Australia. And I said, like, when I found out they were going, which was literally 24 hours after I saw this video, I say to them, check out this concept called Cookie Dough NYC. If it's the best thing that you see and you think it will work in the Australian market, let's do it in Australia. Let's do it together, like us three. And they're like, yeah, cool. They go over, they spend, maybe 2 or 3 weeks traveling around the US, going to all these different concepts, experiencing all these different trends and looking at what's working and even what isn't doing so well there. And they come across the Cookie Dough NYC thing, which I told them to go view, and they loved it. And they decided, let's do this. Let's bring it back to Australia. They even, brought some back in their suitcase for me to try and for other people to try. And we really got hyped up and excited about the idea. So this was in April, and we decided we were going to do it. We all put in a bit of money, a bit of time, and we're like, let's pursue this. We spent all this time and energy hiring someone to do the branding. We hired a chef to create this product, and he created all these complicated recipes. We got a lease in Westfield, Parramatta. It was a pop-up lease, so it was short-term for 3 months. We got someone to build a cart, which obviously cost quite a bit of money for everything with the refrigeration and everything that went into it. We literally put months of work. We started in April, and by September we were ready to go. And we had generated a lot of press. We had a lot of PR. We were featured on Time Out. We were featured on all those broadsheet, all those places where those food influencers. We had some massive influencers on Instagram shout us out and talk about us all before we even opened. And we were super pumped up. We loved our product. We were just so keen to get it out to the market.
This is a big build up, mate. This is a big build up.
It's a big build up, but we spent a lot of time and a lot of money building this product and getting this business ready to go. And we launched and we take it out to the market. I remember our first day, we actually did all right. There were people, because there was a lot of hype online about us. Yeah. We had a lot of people coming to try it, but what we didn't do is we didn't actually do the market research up front. And so we were there for, the 3 months that we had in that lease, but afterwards we essentially decided this is not a sustainable business that can actually make money long-term. And it wasn't because of all the work that we had done. It was because of what we hadn't done, which was actually test the product out and get market research in the first place before going down this massive endeavor. So a bit of a long-winded story, but essentially just a good example of what Tom was talking about, where it's go out to the market first and actually get feedback before you spend all this time, energy, and money developing a product which you're not sure is going to be successful.
That's really well told. And just before we leave that, did you kind of do any post analysis? Like, did you kind of all sit down and be like, well, this is so popular in the US, like, why wasn't it popular here? Or was there any kind of customer, not complaints, but like feedback? Like, did the customers kind of come back multiple times over the 3 months, or what was the difference?
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good question. And we did, it wasn't something that we necessarily sat down at the end. It was kind of once we had launched and we were seeing the feedback and the reaction from people, it was kind of when we realized we've made a big mistake here. And what it actually was is, my family's got a very strong sweet tooth. We love sweet things. We love rich things. There's a saying in my family, there's no such thing as something being too rich. Right? We love fudge. We love very sweet things. And so this product was very sweet and very rich. And what we found, the general Australian public loved it for their first bite and second bite. It's cookie dough. It's not ice cream. So it's quite a rich, dense product. And people were trying it because it was novel, but people weren't coming back, and they weren't even necessarily finishing the whole scoop that we were giving them because it is such a rich product. So from our perspective, we were eating it and we're like, this stuff is the greatest. Like, we really bought into it and believed in our product. Like, we were like, who wouldn't like this? We love it, but it was just far too rich. And even in the very limited market research, which we did, which was giving people samples of the product, we gave them, and this is another great lesson. We gave them like a spoonful of
Yeah.
each flavor. Where in reality, people weren't eating a spoonful, they were getting a whole scoopful. You know, they were getting an ice cream sized scoopful of this rich cookie dough. So the first bite people loved, but by the 10th bite, they're like, I'm starting to feel a bit sick here.
It's an interesting theory, because you've given them the sample, which probably has prompted them to buy because they feel like a little bit more of it, but then they might get through, a third, or maybe not even that, of the actual full product. And by the time they're halfway or 3/4 of the way, they've maybe been turned off the product, which means they're not going to buy it.
Yes. Huh. Exactly. And we did know it was going to be a product that people weren't necessarily going to come back to try again after they've tried it. We knew it was going to be a novel product, something that people want to try, and then they kind of get it out of their system. And that's one of the reasons that we did it as a pop-up for only 3 months, because we kind of wanted to, let people in the area try it and then move the cart somewhere else. But when I was just talking about that, it reminded me of it's not an experiment. It's something that happened between Coke and Pepsi quite a while ago. Basically, Pepsi were trying to understand why Coke was outselling them, in the shops, and people were choosing it over Pepsi. Yeah. And so what they did is they went and tried to get market feedback, and they had people trying like a blind test. They don't know what they're drinking, and they give them like almost like a shot or a little glass of Pepsi, and they give them a little glass of Coke. And time again, people were preferring the Pepsi option. And they couldn't work out why. They're like, people like our product better than Coca-Cola. Why are people going out and buying Coca-Cola? And this went on, they're like, maybe it's our marketing, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And they couldn't work it out. And for many years, they didn't understand why, until one day they realized that the samples that they were giving were small samples. And they realized that having 1 or 2 sips, people enjoyed the taste of Pepsi. But drinking a whole can or a whole bottle of it, people preferred to drink Coke in that volume.
Wow. So
it comes back to actually giving people the full experience of what you're selling, and not just a sample.
Yeah.
That was a big lesson for me.
Wow. Interesting. So, I mean, because what did they do after that? Did they change their recipe? Because I mean, a can of Pepsi is still the same as a can of Coke now.
Yeah. I don't know what they did with that information, but I just thought it was interesting in the context of the cookie.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess if I was trying to relate this back to people that aren't in business, testing before committing is going to save you a lot of time, a lot of heartache. A lot of pain. I mean, Adam was around at my place not too long ago, and we set up a bit of a dating profile for him. And, dating is definitely, more focused online now. And people's attention spans are super short, less than a goldfish, 8 seconds or something like that. And, with all things business and marketing and dating and life in general, you need to be quick. You need to get people's attention quick, and you need to be able to communicate what they're going to get out of you and or your business or products or services very quickly. And so, split testing, which is a term we use in marketing, which is let's put up image A versus image B and see which one gets more clicks. And it's just like that in dating. If you're super worried about your profile from the get-go, or you're convinced that, one of your profile images is going to be the one that gets the most hits, but you haven't tested the other options, then you may be completely wrong. I mean, a good example is I've been using, back in the bodybuilding days, some photos of when I was a little bit leaner than when I am now. I was getting matches, but I'm really intent on cracking this code. And, every marketer's dream is to have, a landing page that converts at 100%. And I want that for my dating profiles. Yeah. Like every single person swipes right on the profile. And I was experimenting one day. I'm like, what is the exact opposite of what I have as my profile picture now? Let's just see what happens. Who knows? And essentially I put a photo of myself in like this weird apron sort of thing with 2 girls next to me. Maybe that have a bit of an impact, but with like a shower cap on my head. and I was not looking too healthy overall, but I looked like a bit of fun as opposed to, you know, super serious bodybuilder sort of dude. And I got 10 times more matches than I did with the fitness profile. So it does go to show that not only should you split test a few different similar options, but sometimes maybe the exact opposite is what you need to do.
Exactly. Definitely agree with that. It all comes back to testing. You never really know what's going to work until you take it to the market.
One, before we finish the topic, one marketer, Sam Ovens, who a lot of probably people listening know, he was kind of fed up that he was at the same level for such a long time. So what he did is he tried to do everything opposite. So instead of having short hair, he grew his hair super long. Instead of writing right-handed, he switched to left-handed. Instead of having all Apple products, he switched everything to Android products just to see what the hell happened. And I actually don't think he made more money. So he went back to what he was doing originally. But, you know, at least once you've tried it, you can say you've tried it. Okay. So what do you see happening in the world / business / marketing in the next, say, 2 years with all that's going on in the world?
In the next 2 years, it's a very interesting question. It's one that's hard to answer, and I'll tell you why it's hard to answer. If we go back 2 years ago, no one, or pretty much no one, would predict TikTok would be what it is today.
Just pause there for a sec. I saw a really good meme this morning that says, "Can we agree that nobody 5 years ago who made, you know, goals or plans for where do you see yourself in 5 years from now being 2020, you know, was correct?" You know, everyone kind of just like their whole, you know, world was turned upside down. But anyway, sorry, continue. TikTok.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you don't really know what is going to be working in 2 years time, or what's going to be happening. Who knows if Facebook's even going to be, like, things change so quickly. But what I can tell you is the fundamentals always apply. And what are the fundamentals? The fundamentals are things like having a good product or a good service, being able to capture someone's attention.
Hallelujah.
Talking to the target markets, talking to the people you want to sell to in their language in a way that they understand. Things like optimizing and testing, they're always going to be things that are working no matter what's happening within the marketing world. So I think that platforms come and go, different strategies and techniques come and go, but what hasn't changed in business in the last 100 years is the fundamentals. It's the foundations. So I think that businesses need to nail the fundamentals and the foundations first before trying all these extreme or, you know, fad marketing techniques or tactics that are working today, because things do change and things evolve very quickly. The fundamentals stay the same.
I just thought of I completely agree with you. I just thought of an interesting analogy that I'd never really thought of before, but when I was doing the competitive bodybuilding, you know, I used to coach a lot of people, and a lot of people followed me, and it got to the point where, you know, I would get a lot of people asking questions. Should I take this? Should I do this? Should I try this? Et cetera, et cetera. And I kept on saying time and time again, like, honestly, a lot of people, because they're carrying too much body weight, would just be a lot happier and get results a lot quicker if they just focus on the nutrition. Like, not exercise, don't even get up off the couch if you don't want to, just eat properly. Yes. And, you know, relating that back to business, if you just have a bloody idea or product or service that people actually want, then that's 80, if not 90% of the whole solution. And then your marketing's 5%, and a few different tweaks here and there, or, you know, a few 1%ers sort of thing. But this has happened before. You know, I think I won't go into it now, but, you know, like the logbook sort of business that I had, and the cuddling business that I had, and even the Transformed by Tom back in the day. You know, these were all businesses that fundamentally people wanted, and that's why they grew really quick, you know, without much marketing, you know, if any marketing at all, sort of thing. So I think you really hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah, awesome. While you think of your next question,
I have it.
You have it. You want to go?
No, you go.
I was just going to say, like, I heard someone talking once about health, and they were talking about how, you look at what's sold in terms of health. It's like this vitamin and this product, and buy this and do this. But you look at the people that are taking all these vitamins and they're waking up and they're doing, all this routine and stuff like that. How many of them are actually getting enough sleep each night?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a fundamental thing you need to be doing. Like, you can be taking all the vitamins, all the this, all the that in the world, but you need to, the fundamentals is, are you getting enough sleep each night? And most people aren't. It's easier to sell. It's easy for a company to sell a vitamin and talk about the benefits of it, but no one's actually selling sleep, which is there's so many benefits to that because people aren't really making money from it.
That was one of my ideas when I have a little bit more capital to make, but we'll go into that another time. But I want to try and piss some people off now, if you don't mind joining.
We'll see. I can't commit to that, but let's shoot away. Let's go.
For the right reasons, I will kind of throw in there as a caveat. All right. So, from a deeper subconscious sort of level, from a psychological level of all that in terms of human behavior mixed with marketing techniques that, probably apply a few sneaky sort of tactics to, trick humans to do things that they potentially weren't going to do or don't want to do or hadn't thought of before, pushing them off the fence, so to speak. Yep. Why do you think people continue to buy these products when they still don't see results from them?
Yeah, great. And what products specifically are you referring to?
Why does somebody jump from diet to diet to diet to diet to diet without actually losing any weight?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think you're probably
a deep level.
Yeah. And I think you're probably better at answering that than me. But what I will say is it does, and I'm just moving forward out of the sun here. But what I will say is it comes back to what I was saying before when you asked me what is the meaning of life, and I talked about survival and reproduction. Now, if you think about someone jumping from diet to diet to diet, why are they doing that, and how does that relate to survival and reproduction? Well, firstly, they might be doing it because they want to increase their chances of reproduction. But secondly, if you look at survival and where humans have come from and evolved from, if you think about the diets that people were eating, they probably weren't very high in a lot of the elements we have today that you can buy in a supermarket that's in almost everything we eat, such as sugar or very sweet stuff like cookie dough, for example.
Yeah, so you're to blame.
So I think that humans definitely have, that evolutionary instinct in a modern world. Like, humans haven't evolved to be able to cope with this world that we're living in, which is, access to things now. Everything's instant, and you can eat as much food as sweet as you like. It satisfies everything that you have evolved to seek out and hunt. Because if we didn't have these drives to seek out the sweet food and to seek out enough calories and to do all these things, humans wouldn't be here today, because there wouldn't have been that motivation to go out and hunt the food if people never got hungry.
Yeah.
Right. But now we're living in a world where you don't have to hunt that food. Everything's instant. And so people have unlimited access to all of these things that used to be scarce in the past. And we're not evolved to actually deal with that. And then switching from diet to diet, people want things as quick as possible with the least amount of effort, the least amount of energy. This is something that, again, it's something that goes back 10,000 years ago. I guarantee you the people living then, they didn't want to waste any extra energy or any extra effort. They wanted the results as quick as possible as well. So we're just living in a very different world than what we're evolved for. And I know that I sort of went down the health element there. Not so much on the marketing, because that was kind of the example that you gave. So I'm happy to talk about it from a marketing perspective if you like. But
I mean, my theory is that if somebody buys something or does something that somebody else has suggested or sold them, so to speak, then when they fail, which they inevitably will, it's not their fault. It's somebody else's fault, because the diet didn't do what, they said it was going to do, or, I was sold something through some pushy marketing or whatnot. And so I think there's an inherent lack of responsibility taking in society, whereby people can easily blame something else as opposed to blaming themselves. And one example is, I've always wanted to host like a big kind of weight loss fitness event, and bring lots of kids and parents in there and whatnot. And I guarantee you that if you brought in 1,000 obese people and you got them to answer one question, and it said, how do you lose weight? I reckon 95% of them would answer it correctly, and they'd say, eat less and exercise more. Which begs the question, why are you all obese, sort of thing. And so I think that in society, and I do it, you do it, everybody does it, it's not taking responsibility for stuff that you really could achieve if you did take on the responsibility and you didn't blame it on third parties.
Agreed, 100%, 100%. And if you're taking notes at home, I think what Tom touched on there is actually fantastic copywriting. If you're selling an outcome, if you're selling a result, which you all are, whatever you're doing, you're selling some sort of a result or outcome. If you can include in your copy, it's not your fault that you haven't achieved these results before. You haven't been given the information to achieve these results. It's no surprise that you haven't achieved these results. It's not your fault that you haven't achieved these results. You just don't have my secret method. And for $97, I'm going to be giving you exactly what you need to achieve this result.
Link below.
Stop spinning your wheels. Yeah, link below. Swipe up.
But I mean, this is obviously we're talking about marketing, but we're more talking about life. And this is one thing that I've really kind of driven home lately to both myself and my family and whatnot, is that everything's the way it is for a reason. Like the filtered water that I have in front of me now, that packaging and the words they're using, the copy, the creative, it's all done to get you to do something. The way that they start the news, the branding on different things, like it's all done in a certain way. And until you actually subconsciously understand that, then consciously you're just going to go around like a robot and take everything in and think that everyone's looking out for your best interests, when really, for the most part, they're not.
Agreed.
All right, let's lighten things up a little bit. So where is Adam going to be in 5 years' time?
Where is Adam going to be in 5 years' time? That's a great question. And I'm going to come back to the answer I gave before about where's the marketing world going to be in 2 years' time. And what I'm going to say is, specifically where I'm going to be, I don't know. But I can tell you what my focus is right now. And that's going to have a big impact on the next 5 years. So I don't know the vehicle I'm going to be in, but I can tell you the path that I'm going to be on. And that is really, it comes down to a few things. And the first is continued learning and execution of marketing strategies and tactics. Because that is something, for me, like I said, when I was 14 years old and read the 4-Hour Workweek and realized the importance of marketing, that's something that I've been pursuing and been extremely passionate about ever since. And it's something that I definitely see myself doing long term. I think it's such an exciting space. I think there's so much to learn. It's so much more than just selling a product. You're learning about human behavior and psychology and why people do what they do. but it's also exciting because it's ever changing and ever evolving. And every day there's new opportunities coming up for people to make more money, for people to grow their brands, for people to have a bigger impact, for people to have a bigger reach. So I think that's part one, is going to be continuing on this marketing endeavor, this marketing journey. Step two, which I would really see myself doing from now, which I've slowly started to be doing, but want to be scaling up over the next few years, and that's building a personal brand.
Nice.
So that's going to be coming through things like being on podcasts and having my own podcast, putting out information across different social media channels. Right now, I'm much more active on LinkedIn because I think that's where there's some great opportunity. But that's going to be coming back to building the personal brand. And then thirdly, this is really where the big unknown is. It's where can I apply
three wives.
It's where can I apply those two things, the marketing skill set with the personal brand, to have the biggest impact. Maybe it's dating. Who knows where it's going to be, but basically applying a skill set to something, whether it's somebody else's business and helping them scale and grow, or whether it's my own business and helping myself scale and grow. I think, I'm not necessarily stuck on having my own business, and I'm not stuck on working for someone else. For me, I'm going to be going to and looking for where the biggest opportunity is at and where I can make the biggest difference.
Nice. Love it. Love it. All right. Where can people find you, good sir?
Where can people find me? I'd say LinkedIn is probably the best place to connect professionally. That's where I'm the most active in releasing the most content. So if you just search me on LinkedIn, Adam Caspary, Caspary, or just look at the name of this podcast or somewhere in the description, I'm sure my name will be there, but Adam Caspary, that's my LinkedIn handle. I also have a podcast where I dive deep and talk to some of the greatest marketing minds in the world. I was going to say Australia, but I have had some international guests. Nice. But really what I attempt to do there is seek out some of the best, most experienced marketers who are on the cutting edge. So they're not using, old school TV ads, even though there's definitely value in understanding that world. But I'm finding people that are cutting edge, leaders or pioneers of the industry, or are very successful at what they do. And I'm interviewing them, trying to pick their brain and find out exactly what they're doing and what they believe and what's working today. So that podcast is called Marketer Insider, which you can search for, and you'll find it across any place that you find a podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify.
All right, very good. So if you wanted to leave the audience with one final word of wisdom or insight, or let's try and give them a practical task to do that can be completed in the next 24 hours that will further their marketing and business career, what would you say? And then maybe I'll give one of mine as well.
Yeah, perfect. I'd say, so I'm gonna give a two-part answer. The first part is just in general. What I'd say is a practical thing that you can do right now within the next 5 minutes is actually write down, think about what you want to achieve, or think about what you want to do, and write down what it is. And then you can work out the steps to get there. So actually knowing an objective. You want to get great at marketing is become a student of advertising. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, when you see an ad, instead of saying, I hate ads, instead of scrolling past the ad, why not take the time, take a second to actually look at the ad and think to yourself, what's good about this? What's bad about this? How can I improve this? If you're scrolling on Facebook or Instagram and something catches your attention and you actually stop to read it and then you realize it's an ad, ask yourself, why did I stop? What actually made me stop? What are the elements in this that captured my attention? And what you want to do is start reverse engineering all these ideas and all these concepts and all these different ads that you're seeing, and think about how could you adapt them or apply them to what it is that you're doing. So that's my response. Become a student of advertising and study what other people are doing.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I never really thought of this, and I guess this is the power of, kind of masterminding, whether it be face to face or on a Zoom call or podcast or whatnot. But, if you looked at every piece of branding and advertising and you thought to yourself, this business is making X amount of money through this ad. And of course, there's going to be businesses that aren't profitable from the advertising. But if say you're scrolling past an ad and it has 10,000 likes, 5,000 comments, and 3,000 shares, then rest assured that that business has made millions of dollars with that ad in profit. Like that ad has bought somebody a Lamborghini or a mansion at the beach. Like it's kind of a no-brainer. And so if you're interested in making money or whatnot, then you should be critically analyzing the ads and trying to work out how much money they've made the owners. And for most people on here, that should motivate you to apply that to your own businesses and life in general. So I guess my practical explanation would be, if you're interested in starting a business, I would write down as many business ideas as you can. And when I say as many, I don't mean 3, I mean like 100 different business ideas. And then, that'll take less than 24 hours. And then I go to your friends or family, whoever you live with, and say, look, can you circle your 5 most favorite business ideas? And then, if you can get 2 or 3 people to do that, there might be some common trends. And there might be 1 or 2 businesses that, have a few people that have circled those. And then I would put them on Facebook. And everyone's really worried that somebody's going to steal your idea and do it. Like, trust me, I often had that thought before, and it's not true. Like, I think that a great idea would be time travel. But it's not like I'm going to go out and then invent a bloody time travel machine this afternoon. Like, it just doesn't happen. So put 3 of the top ideas on Facebook. See if you get some good interaction with them, and whichever one that you're most interested in, and it might be the winner, it might not be the winner, but you've really kind of done some cool market research. You've thought of 100 different business ideas and you've got some feedback, and who knows, those people that gave the feedback or who liked the post or whatnot might be your first customers, and then you can build the business after that. So that would be my 2 cents.
Yeah, awesome. I like it.
So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, whether you were watching us or listening to us. If you enjoyed it and you think that your friends or family might value listening to what Adam and I had to say, then please share it with them. I personally, and I'm not too sure about Adam, but I personally will hug and kiss everybody who shares this to 2 or 3 friends. And, you can let me know where you are in the world and I will come and visit you. So thank you. Thank you, Adam. Everybody jump over to Adam's page, follow him, listen to his podcast as well. I may or may not be featured there in the earlier seasons. So you might get some more words of wisdom from.
Yeah, definitely worth listening to that episode. It's the first episode that I ever recorded. And of course the only guest I wanted to have as the very first one was the well-known, the famous Tom Redaway, and it was still to this day one of the most listened to episodes of all time.
Yes, if I don't grab your attention in the first 10 seconds of listening to that podcast, then you feel free to turn it off. But I think that I will. So go and have a listen after this.
And you'll learn on that episode how Tom grew a business using Tinder.
It's a common theme in my initial marketing discussions. So no, it's a good one. All right, mate. Thank you. Cheers. And we'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Tom.